Good Friday evening, and thank you so much for tuning in on what has been certainly a hectic day all around for most everyone to some degree, and for some to the nth degree. A lot of that, of course, associated with record cold temperatures last night. Minus 25, a solid minus 25 anywhere I look this evening in the hometown and for much of the viewing area. Brutal, brutal temperatures. Now followed by what we have been told to expect, another winter storm taking aim at the viewing area and much of the Commonwealth. We'll be talking about that tonight. We'll talk about some structure fires last night, some of those associated with the cold, some serious situations. A local business destroyed, man escaping his home after trying to stay warm and have some light with a lamp. He spilled some oil, it ignited his entire residence. And another flooding situation at the Justice Center. That's just a few of the things we have on that front. And I'm foregoing some other headlines we had this evening in lieu of some breaking news. It comes to us per a judgment handed down by Special Appointed Judge John David Preston, who himself personally delivered to the Magoffin County Circuit Clerk's Office a more than 50-page ruling as it pertains to the election case, the civil suit filed on behalf of Magoffin County Judge Executive candidate John Montgomery against Charles Knock Harden and the Magoffin County Board of Elections. There has been a decision. The summation, very, very brief, is that Magoffin County, technically per that order, does not have a judge executive. I'll fill you in as much as I have time for this evening. That information literally coming in, and a lot of it just a short time ago. That, the weather, and some local stories is all we'll try to hit this evening. As far as the weather, we'll elaborate in more detail, and I'm trying. It's hard to sugarcoat a big wintry, dangerous mess, but winter storm warnings in effect from 7 tonight till 7 p.m. tomorrow. Snow for us this evening, a mixture of snow, sleet, and rain expected on Saturday before precipitation gradually diminishes on Saturday. Snow is also possible from Sunday evening through Monday, and then Tuesday into Wednesday of next week if that's not enough. Snow and sleet accumulations for the viewing area, specifically the viewing area, of 2 to 5 inches, as well as up to 1/4 of an inch of ice are expected. A lot of folks, very rightfully so, have been making and taking preparations earlier today in case of power failure, similar to what thousands of us saw earlier today, and I was one of those. Power outages for a couple of different reasons, and we were to have more on that in an update, but I can tell you the majority of the power has been restored. About 2,000 AEP customers in Magoffin County alone, which was the hardest hit of their eastern Kentucky area, were without power. It began in the Burning Fork area and in that vicinity of Magoffin County around 1 o'clock this morning. Then it spread to the city of Sagersville, Dixie, myself, and others right around 5:07. I know that because I was awake and just had been awakened by the call of a second structure fire. Nevertheless, the situation on Burning Fork was a broken line. They had to run a new line, and I believe most of that situation was remedied by around 12:30, 1 o'clock. For the city residents and folks who were on that string, well, it was a bit of a slower go. It was basically, as my understanding is, a situation where around 5 o'clock this morning, very bright and early, after a lot of heat sources were running wide open during the overnight, a lot of other folks started to wake up and get moving all at one time, and that sudden strain through a breaker, a very big and important breaker, and to try to make sure it didn't happen again, they tried to isolate as small of areas as possible and bring them back online so as not to cause that situation again. They are urging everyone to try to conserve, save energy if at all possible. And then, of course, there are those customers over in the Flat Fork, Mine Fork area who've been dealing without gas and electric. For some of them, I do know, per some remarks, just as of airtime, we have some calls into the PSC and Frontier Gas, and we don't have any information back on that front, but they too were seeing gas come on in a limited supply. That also includes the Royalton area as well. Licking Valley RACC said they had really no outages to speak of. They were very pleased about that, as I am sure. So with that said, we'll get to your, oh, and by the way, if minus 25 felt bad, Madison County hit a minus 32 last night, very near an all-time state record. As for myself, I realized just how quickly and dangerously going without heat can be, even with a few gas logs as backup sources. It didn't take long for temperatures in my house just for the course of a few hours to get very cold very fast. It was 29 degrees inside my office and the studio when I came in this morning. That's been something else I've had to deal with. And then just as I sat down, literally underneath my feet, the water line that had froze off last night decided to burst at that exact same moment. So while it's been a very light scenario compared to what a lot of other folks have had to endure, to some degree, I do feel your pain. But it's very, very smart and very wise that we all take heed of this winter warning that I'll have in just a few moments. And local headlines will begin right after this. To get high-speed internet on their state-of-the-art fiber optic network for all of your home and business solutions, or to watch TV without a contract on over 200 digital channels with superb quality, or stay connected with family and friends with 24/7 telephone service you can always depend on, contact Foothills Broadband today. Or just click on their link to the right to find out how they're working to provide the latest in communications at affordable prices with exceptional service at Foothills Broadband. It's not just isolated to Magoffin County. Johnson County responding to numerous structure fires as well. Here in Magoffin, it's been a busy day, and it all started actually late last night. A local business was, for the most part, extremely damaged, close to being destroyed by fire and smoke damage as well. A local man narrowly escapes his home after igniting a fire in his residence, trying to stay warm and have some light. And the Justice Center in Magoffin County, similar to a report, not to the same scale but close, saw another flooding situation after a sprinkler was activated earlier today. All of those reports begin right now with some remarks on behalf of Fire Chief Paul Howard and some other individuals close to all those circumstances. Local fire departments have responded to a multitude of fires in the coldest weather in decades, for a lifetime for many. Fire Chief Paul Howard says his department responded to a structure fire at Stevens Auto Sales on East Mountain Parkway late last night. Billowing smoke from the structure was noticed, we believe, by a motorist who called 911. Upon arrival of emergency personnel, the fire department was fighting a fire in conditions unlike anything that Howard said he had seen since the 70s.
The last time I remember is back in the 70s, late 70s, when part of town burnt down down here beside of the Renaissance building, the old Willis's 5 and 10 and Orange Tigers pool room. I want to say that they said the wind chill was like -35 that day, or that night, the 2 nights. Last night at Stevens Auto Sales, we was toned out about 11:15. Upon arrival, the office section of the business was completely engulfed in flame. We confined it to the office and didn't let it spread to the garage. As far as the cause of it, it's still under investigation for cause and origin. We just haven't had a chance to go back out there and determine exactly what caused and where it started to happen. The weather conditions was on my truck showed a -23 last night. Our firefighters literally had to be picked up and set out of their turnout gear. It was just solid frozen.
And this picture of turnout gear worn by Tracy Salyer of the Salyersville Fire Department certainly illustrates that fact. -25-degree weather and water just don't make for an ideal situation of any sort. But it was one that enabled the fire department to control most of the blaze, save the majority of the structure and some important materials of Stevens.
Well, the office section of it is totally destroyed. We did get his titles and his paperwork out that was in the office before it completely collapsed.
And in just a matter of moments, literally from responding to that fire, the Salyersville Fire Department will be called to another structure fire on Dodson Branch off of Burning Fork in Magoffin County, to a residential fire in which the resident did make it out with smoke inhalation. Those fires were a part of a total of 5 fires and 6 emergency calls just between late last night and 11:15 this morning.
We was toned out about 5 o'clock this morning after fighting the Stevens fire. We went to the Dodson Branch farm. Upon arrival at Dodson Branch, it's a single family dwelling, wood structure. It was engulfed in flame. Over half the house was on fire when I arrived. The road conditions was terrible. I drive a 4-wheel drive unit, and I barely got up in there, and I just there wasn't nobody in the house, and there wasn't no extending exposures, so I decided to not send the truck or try to make the truck go up through there, because there wasn't no way of saving anybody's life. Wasn't no use to destroying a piece of property. He reported that he was filling up a Colo lantern and spilled it in the floor, and it knocked over and caught the house on fire.
Did he say about about getting out, or how quickly it happened, or what he got out with?
He got out with his pet. He had a little pet dog and some clothing. He stayed in a little too long. He had smoke inhalation, but he refused treatment by the ambulance service. His brother-in-law from over in Floyd County came and picked him up and took him over there to stay.
The homeowner of that structure fire was identified as a Charlie Watkins, who, as Fire Chief Paul Howard says, was staying with family and was basically uninjured, fortunately. It wouldn't be the last call and won't be the last report that we'll be following the Sangersville Fire Department on, and others. This time we go back to the McGoffin County Justice Center for a familiar situation, all too familiar, with similar circumstances. The exact cause may be different. That's still under investigation, but another flooded offices after a sprinkler head which either malfunctioned due to being frozen or possibly reacted to a small fire or a malfunctioning light fixture in the ceiling. Maintenance personnel say that they noticed smoke and then immediately came into the room that was filled with smoke, and before a moment or two passed, an instant basically, a sprinkler activated or gave way and then flooded this particular portion of the Justice Center.
It was pretty smoky when we come in, and it was spraying, the sprinkler head was spraying.
It looked like it had already been spraying for a few minutes?
Not very long when I walked in. It could have just possibly just done it because in there was not wet at all. When I run downstairs and turned the water off, was probably within that time frame when it spread a little further, but it was still in here.
No, under the early inspection of it, I think we might have a light balance that melted out and burnt the sprinkler head off. I could be incorrect and could be frozen, but it light balance is smoked until I can get it down and take a look at it.
Regardless, it's another cleanup process that they are, like I said, all too familiar with. Not much happening on tonight's community calendar. Still, everything is just canceled, and we don't have a lot of high hopes for next week. Nevertheless, a few birthdays that we need to make mention of, and of course some other announcements to follow. So let's begin with some birthdays, and the first one reads as follows. Could you please wish Jonathan Manns a happy 17th birthday from all his family and friends? Here it goes. Happy birthday, Jonathan Manns, from all your family and friends. And I'm having difficulty finding those announcements. Bear with me. We'll try to come back to those in a few moments. Right now, a commercial break. We'll get to those in our top stories left in just a second. To get high-speed internet on their state-of-the-art fiber optic network for all of your home and business solutions, or to watch TV without a contract on over 200 digital channels with superb quality, or stay connected with family and friends with 24/7 telephone service you can always depend on, contact Foothills Broadband today. Or just click on their link to the right to find out how they're working to provide the latest in communications at affordable prices with exceptional service at Foothills Broadband. I have two more top stories this evening. One, your forecast, which heeds warning, and the other is a ruling handed down today, received, turned in, and filed in the Circuit Clerk's Office of the McGoffin County Justice Center earlier today, hand-delivered by Special Appointed Judge John David Preston after Kim Childers initially recused herself from the case filed on behalf of Republican candidate for McGoffin County Judge Executive John Montgomery against Charles Doc Harden and the McGoffin County Board of Elections. Just earlier this afternoon, shortly before airtime, we learned that Special Judge John David Preston did himself drive to deliver his more than 55 pages in all, a decision in which he has ordered that the November 4th, 2015 general election for McGoffin County Judge Executive be set aside, and that the office of McGoffin County Judge Executive be deemed vacant per his orders. Judge Preston also further ordered that the plaintiff, Montgomery, shall recover his court costs from the defendants, that being Harden, and there being no cause for delay. It was also said this is the final and appealable order. In his extensive summary and judgment, Judge Preston cited numerous irregularities as to how absentee ballots were incorrectly issued and accepted, how they were improperly handled for counting, how early in-house voting of voters was not performed as the statutes require. He also cited several services provided by the county in exchange for votes such as gravel and various road work and evidence of vote buying. And keep in mind, this came in just before airtime. I haven't had time to go over the entire document or much less talk to the parties involved. All of that will follow up on Monday. But I can tell you, as I go through parts of it, there is one portion of it in his judgment or ruling that says the plaintiff contends that the election of defendant Charles Hardin should be set aside and held for naught, and that the plaintiff should be declared the winner of the election. Under the plain language of the statute, it says the court should adjudge that there has been no election, in neither contestant nor contestee can be judged to have been fairly elected. Basically, while Montgomery contends that the election should be set aside and he should be awarded the winner, the judge says that there has been no election if neither contestant nor contestee can be judged to have been fairly elected. The court has concluded that neither candidate can claim to have been fairly elected. The court therefore concludes that the election should be set aside and held for naught. Now, this is just some random video of one of the days of testimony that I'm reading this over just to have something to use as a background while I'm going over some other portions of the document. It says the court has reviewed the absentee ballot applications that are a part of Exhibit 2, and of the 1,145 absentee ballot applications, 910 or 79% of them did not contain the social security number of the voter on the application. 40% did not contain the voter's telephone number. 31% did not contain the place where the voter was planning on election day. 8 applications missing the name of the person who made out the request of the absentee. The court finds that Larry Shepard, it says, the husband of County Court Clerk Renee Shepard, assisted 4 voters in voting in-house voting absentee with no other person being present to assist the voter. The court also finds that 171 votes were cast in the in-house absentee voting at the machine at a time where there was no Republican election commissioner present. An issue has been raised, he says, as to the voting at Flat Fork Precinct, as to whether or not persons were assisted in voting by Democrat Judge Donna Isaac without the Republican judge being present for voting. Donna Isaac stated that she voted persons only with the assistance of the Republican judge. Her testimony was supported by an Eric Bishop who served as sheriff for the Flat Fork Precinct. Stephanie Montgomery, he says, testified that she observed Donna Isaac providing assistance to voters sometimes by herself. Simon and Mickey Marshall both testified that they voted at Flat Fork Precinct. The judge says that they've also testified that they voted with assistance and testified that Donna Isaac alone assisted them in voting. And further, the voter assistance forms disclosed that on 12 occasions that the form for voter assistance was signed by Donna Isaac. On 2 occasions, the form was signed by Eric Salyer only. From the evidence, the court says it also finds that gravel was placed illegally upon private property on at least 4 or 5 occasions in a short period of time prior to the election. The court also finds from the evidence that gravel was provided by employees of the Montgomery County Fiscal Court acting under the direct supervision of Dr. and Judge Charles Hardin. The court also finds from evidence that 4 voters, Jerry Adams, Simon Marshall, Doug Marshall, and Brian Marshall, cast ballots as a result of being paid to do so or expected to be paid for doing so. The court also found that on numerous occasions the clerks at 4 precincts did not initial precinct voting books as to the means by which the particular voter was recognized, and the court also found that from evidence from the number of absentee ballots in the Montgomery County in the election was abnormally high, and that the court further finds that the percentage of votes cast in absentee ballots in the county judge executive race for the candidates was seriously out of proportion to the percentages of votes cast for the candidates on the voting machines. It goes on. This is just a few pages of all the pages, and this is all that I had time to go over. It's with my apologies that we couldn't go over any information further, but it has been one of those days all around for not just myself but everyone as well with the power outage and everything else. We'll continue or wrap it up by reading part of the conclusion that also leaves a great deal of questions as to if the vacant is office, how will it be filled, when will it be filled, and by who. And lastly on this report, in quickly reviewing the very lengthy order, of which we'll go into it more next week, it was apparent that a great part of Judge Preston's order stemmed from problems with the Magoffin County Board of Elections and County Court Clerk Renee Arnett Shepard's office, in that numerous statutes were not followed as is required by state law governing elections. Judge Hardin, as I understand, after seeking some advice from legal counsel myself, reportedly, as I understand, has 8 days to file an appeal to the ruling, at which time the Kentucky Court of Appeals will determine if they will hear the appeal. If not, the governor may appoint someone to fill the vacant judge's office until the next election cycle. It's pretty safe to assume that Hardin will file. We can only assume what is called a supersedeas bond, which in essence stays the effect of the judgment while the matter is under review by the Court of Appeals. That is merely an assumption. If Hardin files that bond, he can remain possibly in the judge's office until the appeals court decides if they will grant an appeal. And it is set on an 8-day time frame, so a decision will come quickly. That's all I have time to report on that matter at this hour, and leaves me very little time, as much as what I need, to make sure that everyone is very well aware, and I think we all are by now, of the serious weather situation facing us tonight and for your weekend. And I am very well aware I had a snowman contest to tend to this evening, with my apologies, just due to the power being out at the office and studio most of the morning and the afternoon. It just was not going to be part of the program tonight. I even got some birthdays and calendar announcements that I've had to omit from the program. A great deal of apologies there. I promise to make all of that up to you, to those individuals who called those in on Monday, when we'll also be following up on that story that, of course, I just covered. So with that said, a winter storm warning in effect as of 7 this evening through the same time tomorrow evening. Snow and sleet accumulations up to 2 to 5 inches. A quarter of an inch of ice is also expected. But even as close as we are to this system, it is going to be nearly a wait-and-see, moment-by-moment situation to see just exactly how much snow, how much sleet, how much rain, how much freezing rain that we all see. Regardless, it's going to be one big wintry mess, to say the very, very least, that will have serious implications. You need to keep a close eye on your weather until you see me next time. Every hour, check on the hour to see the conditions. And make sure, if you don't have to go anywhere, just don't. Tomorrow, 36 for the high, which will be a change, first time above freezing forever. A low of 30 tomorrow night, so it puts us into the rain category, but we've got a lot of snow on the ground. We've got a really cold ground temperature. It's going to be a long road to go to make it to rain conditions that will see melting effects. This is going to be a larger, I think, wintry mess than it is going to be a rain event, although we will have a little bit of everything in there. Sunday, 36, mostly cloudy, 12 for the nighttime low, 50% chance of rain and snow. And then temperatures, as you would hope, would go in the opposite direction. We'll take a plunge in the direction that will revert back to. And we'll see another big Arctic mass roll in here, and that will give us more chances of snowfall into next week. Temperatures on your Monday right now, a daytime high of 21 and a nighttime low close to 0 on Monday of next week. I can't stress enough, keep your eye on the weather. We'll have tonight's show uploaded onto the internet. I know it was rough around the edges, but it was just a massive undertaking to get it on in its entirety as it was presented to you this evening. I wish to thank you for being a part of it. Check out yournewstoday.com for, of course, local programming. And, of course, check us out every weeknight, of which we'll see you back here on Monday for more of Your News Today. Good night, and be safe.